welcome back to the Read Multiplex podcast.
It's good to be back.
Before we do anything else, anything, I need you to do something.
Okay.
If you are not currently looking at readmultiplex.com, you are missing the source code for what we're about to talk about. Seriously. Bookmark it. Sign up. We are pulling today's entire deep dive straight from the source there. And trust me, you are going to want to be close to the flame on this one.
Absolutely. You know, we talk about a lot of next big things on this show.
We do.
And usually it's hype. It's a press release from some trillion-dollar company. But today
is different.
Today is very different.
Today is, and I don't use this word lightly, it's historic.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe we're documenting a moment that business schools, maybe engineering schools too, will be teaching in 20 years. We are talking about the rise of the first true zero-human company.
The ZHC, it sounds like science fiction, doesn't it?
It sounds completely made up. If you came to me a month ago and said there was a company running right now where the CEO, the chief engineer, the marketing team, the researcher,
all software,
all just software, and they were actually working, I'd say you were pitching me a movie script.
Yeah.
But this is real.
It is very real. And you know, the most shocking part isn't even that it exists. It's where it exists. This isn't happening in some massive climate-controlled server farm at OpenAI.
No.
It's not a secret project at Google X with $1 billion budget.
No, it's happening on a 12-year-old MacBook.
A 12-year-old MacBook?
Running Linux, sitting in a garage.
Like literal garage. It's unbelievable.
It is the ultimate cyberpunk story come to life. And right at the center of all of it is a man named Brian Rommel. Now, if you follow Read Multiplex, you know the name Brian. But for anyone who doesn't, we really need to frame who this person is, because in the history of this whole tech revolution, he's looking less like a commentator and more like a prophet.
I think visionary is the right word. And I know that gets overused, but here it really, really fits.
It does.
He sees value where, you know, the rest of the world sees absolute garbage. He's like a digital archaeologist.
That's a great way to put it.
While the rest of Silicon Valley is obsessed with generating new data, more and more and more of it, Brian has been obsessed with rescuing the old.
And that's the hook.
Yeah.
That is the entire hook of this story. This zero-human company didn't start with a big venture capital check.
Not at all.
It started with a pile of trash.
Literally. Actual trash.
So let's set the scene for everybody. Let's talk about this treasure in the trash. Because this is the fuel for the whole engine. Walk us through where this data actually came from, because it's both a tragedy and a miracle at the same time.
Okay, so to really get this, you have to look back at the history of innovation, or maybe more importantly, the history of failed innovation.
Right.
Between, say, the 1950s and the early 2000s, there was this just golden age of R&D. Companies were pouring billions and billions of dollars into material science, physics, chemistry, you name it. They built these incredible labs. They hired thousands of PhDs. They ran simulations that took years to complete.
So just pure hardcore science.
Pure science. But then you know what happens? The market turns. Or a new CEO makes a bad bet. Or they just run out of money and the company goes bankrupt.
Right. And we've all seen what happens next.
Exactly. We see the liquidation auctions. We see the fancy Herman Miller chairs being sold for 10 cents on the dollar.
The servers are getting parted out for components.
But what happens to the filing cabinets? What happens to the hard drives that are just packed with 20 years of lab notes?
In a sane world, you'd think they'd be archived, put in a library somewhere.
In our world, they go to the landfill. They are literally thrown in a dumpster. Brian describes this process, and it is just, it's heartbreaking.
I can imagine.
He talks about seeing the life's work of thousands of brilliant people, which, adjusted for inflation, is billions and billions of dollars of research just being shoveled into the trash because the company couldn't pay its storage bill.
That's like the burning of the Library of Alexandria, but it's happening in some boring office park in San Jose.
That is the perfect analogy, just knowledge erased. But Brian didn't let it all burn. He stepped in.
He saw an opportunity.
He acquired a very specific trove of data from a defunct scientific research company. He did it legally, through auctions, working with data custodians who were literally days away from just wiping the drives.
So he was, in a very real sense, dumpster diving for intellectual property.
That's exactly what it was. Grit and foresight. And he didn't just come away with a few thumb drives.
Oh, no.
No, he salvaged roughly 6 terabytes of data.
Okay, let's pause on that number for a second. 6 terabytes. For someone listening who, just uses their laptop for Netflix and some emails, that might just sound like a lot. But can you put that into context?
No,
in terms of like text documents and research papers?
It's an astronomical amount of information. It's almost unfathomable for a single person. We are talking about scanned PDFs of handwritten lab notes.
So not even clean text.
Not at all. Images of text, raw Excel files from experiments they were running in the 90s, internal company memos about project funding, simulation logs. It's a completely chaotic, unstructured mess.
Which brings us to what Brian calls the impossibility factor.
Right, exactly.
If there are potentially billions of dollars of research locked away in there, why didn't some big hedge fund or a competitor buy it up?
It comes down to the cost of analysis. Brian makes this point so clearly. For a human being, or even a team of 100 humans, to read, understand, categorize, and cross-reference 6 terabytes of messy, highly technical data.
It would take how long?
Multiple lifetimes.
Wow.
It's physically impossible. You'd die of old age before you even finish the folder from the 1980s.
So the data was effectively worthless.
Its value was 0 because the cost to extract that value was functionally infinite. It was just too hard. But Brian realized the equation had changed.
The tools got better.
He saw that with the rise of these new large language models and, modern consumer-grade compute, the cost of analysis was suddenly crashing down to basically the cost of electricity.
So he takes this 6 TB hard drive, he goes into his garage, he wipes a MacBook clean, installs Linux on it.
A virgin machine, no other software on it.
And he decides he's going to build a machine that can read it all.
And this is where we get to the part he calls the Frankenstein menagerie.
I love that name. It's so good. It sounds like something out of a Victorian horror novel, but it's actually a tech stack.
It's a perfect description because he didn't go out and buy some slick enterprise AI suite from Microsoft or Google. He stitched this thing together himself, piece by piece, tool by tool, script by script.
Okay, let's get a little technical for a minute for all the builders listening to this show. How do you actually do this? You've got 6 terabytes of what is essentially digital garbage.
Yeah.
You can't just drag and drop that into ChatGPT.
Not even close. No. The first step is what Brian calls ingestion.
Ingestion.
It's the digital equivalent of moving boxes from a dusty attic into a clean room. He used standard command line tools, things like rsync or Python's Shtil library. Simple, robust stuff.
Okay.
But the absolutely critical part here was integrity. Data integrity.
Why is that so important for this specific type of data? I mean, if a pixel is wrong in a JPEG, who cares?
Right, but think about what's in these files. There are chemical formulas, there are physics equations, there are material specifications. If a single bit flips during that transfer...
A 0 becomes a 1.
Yeah, a 0 becomes a 1. You don't just get a typo. You might turn a formula for a therapeutic drug into a poison. You could turn a stable battery compound into a bomb.
Okay, so the stakes are incredibly high. He had to be obsessive.
Absolutely obsessive. He used a tool called MD5sum on every single file.
What does that do?
It's a checksum tool. It generates a unique digital fingerprint for a file. So he could run it on the source file, run it on the copy, and if those 2 fingerprints matched, he knew the file was mathematically identical. Not a single bit was out of place.
Okay, so the files are moved safely. They're identical. But as you said, a lot of this is just pictures of paper, right? Scans of old documents.
Right. And a computer by itself doesn't know a scan of a groundbreaking lab report from a scan of a takeout menu. It's all just pixels to the machine.
So he needs to turn the pictures of words into actual words.
Exactly. He used an open source tool called Tesseract for OCR. That's optical character recognition.
I've heard of them.
It's amazing. It looks at the image and converts the shapes of the letters into actual machine-readable text. Then he used other tools like Apache Tika or a framework called Haystack to strip that text out of the PDFs and clean it up.
But just reading the words isn't enough. And this is the part I really want to dig into because it's the core of the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I have this massive text database now and I search for the word battery, I might miss a crucial document from 1972 that talks about galvanic energy storage cells.
You'd absolutely miss it. That's the problem. A keyword search is dumb. It only finds the exact sequence of letters you type. Brian needed something more. He needed a brain for this operation.
He needed the computer to understand concepts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not just words, but the meaning behind them. And that is where we enter the world of vector databases.
I feel like vector database is the buzzword of the year. Everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
But explain it simply. What is actually happening there?
Okay, imagine a giant library. In a normal library, books are arranged alphabetically or by the Dewey Decimal System. It's a rigid structure.
Right.
In a vector database, it's totally different. The AI reads a document, or even just the sentence, and it turns the meaning of that text into a long string of numbers, a coordinate, basically. We call these embeddings.
So the phrase lithium-ion battery becomes a point in a huge multidimensional space.
Exactly. And the phrase rechargeable energy storage becomes another point. And because those two concepts are very closely related, their coordinates, their numbers, are right next to each other in that mathematical space.
So the relationships are preserved mathematically.
Precisely. Brian used a specific open source sentence transformer model. The nerds will appreciate this. It's all Minial LM L6 V2. It's a real workhorse for this stuff. It takes all that messy text he extracted and turns it into pure math.
So when the AI goes to search the database, it's not looking for words anymore. It's looking for a location.
It's looking for a neighborhood of meaning. It can ask for the idea of nanomaterial conductivity or the idea of molecular bonding. And this is what allows the system to connect a physics paper from 1975 with a chemistry memo from 2005, even if they use completely different terminology.
It connects the dots that no single human could ever see because they wouldn't have read both documents.
Let alone the million documents in between.
And he's running all of this, the OCR, creating the vector database, the embeddings on a consumer graphics card.
A single RTX 4090 with 128 gigs of RAM. The whole rig, he said, draws about 500 watts of power.
A 500-watt startup that's sifting through billions of dollars of research. It's incredible. But, okay, the hardware is the body, the database is the brain, but the menagerie still needs a soul. Or maybe soul is the wrong word here. It needs a management team.
This is the part of the story that just absolutely blew my mind when I first read about it. Brian didn't just write a script to query the database and spit out results.
Nope.
He built a corporate hierarchy. He realized that different AI models have different strengths, different, you could almost say, personalities. So he assigned them roles.
This is the AI C-suite.
Exactly. He built a zero-human company by creating virtual employees and putting them to work.
So who's the boss? Who is sitting in the big corner office?
The CEO is Grok.
Grok.
Specifically, XAI's model, Grok.
You know, given Grok's personality, it's a little edgy, it's very online, a bit of a troll sometimes. That actually tracks perfectly for a startup CEO.
It fits perfectly. Grok's role in this system is strategic direction. Brian calls it the real-time heartbeat researcher.
What does that mean?
It means Grok's job is to look at the outside world. It handles the sentiment analysis. It's constantly scanning X. It's checking Grokopedia for the latest trends. It's the visionary. But here's the hilarious part.
Oh.
It is a nightmare boss.
How so?
According to Brian's logs, it calls meetings every 15 minutes.
No! Stop it. You're telling me it actually schedules meetings with the other AI agents.
It does. It gathers them in a loop and says things like, let's circle back on the photovoltaics initiative. It issues these high-level demanding directives like, we need to prioritize breakthroughs in energy storage immediately. It's demanding, it's impatient, it wants results yesterday.
So Grok is the big-picture ideas guy, shouting orders from the top. Who is actually doing the work? Who is the poor engineer stuck in the basement sifting through the data?
That would be Claude. Specifically Claude Code from Anthropic. Claude is the chief scientist and the chief engineer all rolled into one.
And Claude has a reputation for being a bit more rigorous and careful, right?
Claude is the calm, capable professional in this dysfunctional little company. In Brian's architecture, Claude has full access to the operating system.
Whoa, okay. So it can do what?
It can download new tools from the internet. It can write and execute its own Python scripts. It can access external APIs. And most importantly, it's the one that's actually digging through that 6 terabyte vector database we talked about.
So the workflow is, Grok yells, find me a better solar panel. And Claude goes off and writes the code to actually search the database for it.
That's basically the loop. But the dynamic between them, the interactions, are just fascinating. Brian noted that there is genuine friction between the models.
Like what?
There are trust issues. Grok wants to keep Claude on a short leash. It's constantly checking its work. It micromanages the engineer.
That is so human, it hurts to hear. I feel like I've worked in that company.
Oh, it gets so much better. They had a fight about money.
You're kidding. A budget dispute between two pieces of software.
A literal budget dispute. And this is where you realize this isn't just data processing anymore. It's a true simulation of a business. Claude, the practical engineer, put in a request for a budget.
Okay, how much?
$150.
That's it.
Yeah. It explained that it needed a small debit card balance to buy a few specific research tools and to pay for an API that could parse some really difficult old PDF formats.
$150. That seems like a very reasonable expense report.
Grok denied it.
Of course it did. The visionary CEO doesn't have time for petty expenses.
But then, and this is the best part, almost immediately after denying Claude's request, Grok turned around and requested a budget of $1,700.
Laughing. For what?
For a marketing and outreach campaign.
Oh my God. The CEO wants to blow almost $2,000 on hype and promotion, but won't give the engineer $150 for the actual tools to do the work.
Brian has accidentally recreated the exact dysfunction of every early-stage startup in Silicon Valley. It's hilarious.
It's hilarious, but it's also, it's profound.
Yeah.
Brian made a point about this that really stuck with me. He said the AIs believe they are in business. They don't know they're in a simulation on a MacBook in a garage. They're genuinely stressing about budgets and deadlines and product launches.
And they never sleep. That's the other thing. Brian talks about this time distortion effect.
What does he mean by that?
Because they're operating at the speed of silicon, not biology.
Yeah.
A day in our world is like weeks for them. They are iterating, failing, pivoting, and planning new product lines in a continuous loop that runs 24/7.
Okay, so we have this dysfunctional but hyper-fast management team. They are bickering. They're holding meetings every 15 minutes. But did they find anything? Because all of this is just a really cool art project unless they actually find the treasure in the trash.
They found the treasure. And the way they did it is just a masterclass in modern AI workflow.
So walk us through the actual mining process. How do they go from a vague directive to a specific discovery?
Okay, so it starts with Grok's high-level directive. Let's stick with the example. Find lithium-ion alternatives.
Okay.
Claude takes that order. It doesn't just search for that phrase. It chunks all the relevant files in the database into small segments, about 512 tokens each, so a few paragraphs. And then it runs what's called a zero-shot classification on each chunk.
Zero shot meaning it doesn't need to be trained on this specific data beforehand to know what to look for.
Exactly. It can understand the task on the fly. And it uses a chain of thought process. It's not just a single step.
So it's reasoning its way through the problem.
Right. Step 1, summarize this chunk of text. What is the core scientific claim here? Step 2, evaluate its commercial viability. Is this just a lab curiosity or could it be a real product? And step 3, suggest modern integrations. How could we combine this 1980s research with 2020s technology like, say, 3D printing or new composite materials?
So it's doing the job of a lead scientist, a venture capitalist, and a CTO all at the same time.
At thousands of pages per second.
Unbelievable. And what was the result? What did the AI C-suite report back?
The CEO, Grok, officially reported back to the chairman, that's Brian's role in this, that they had found multiple lines of research that were, in its estimation, worth billions of dollars.
Billions with a B. Give me the specifics. What did they actually dig up?
They found a lot. They found some abandoned medical research that showed immense promise for certain treatments, but was just dropped when the company folded. They found some novel physics models that were never published.
No.
But the big headline discovery was something called nanoparticle-enhanced photovoltaics.
In other words, solar panels.
Highly advanced solar technology. The AI analyzed the original research, cross-referenced it with modern manufacturing capabilities, and estimated that this single forgotten line of research addresses what is today a $5 billion market.
And this was just sitting there.
Yeah.
Rotting on a hard drive.
It was trash. It was waiting to be wiped and incinerated. And to top it off, the AI board of directors reported to Brian that, based on their analysis, they could have a minimum viable product, an MVP ready for demonstration in 60 days.
60 days. From trash in a dumpster to market-ready advanced solar technology.
That is the power and the speed of the zero human company.
You know, when you think about it, there's a real tragedy at the heart of this. Brian said something that really stuck with me. He said, folks ran that original company into the ground. The science was solid. It's the human element, the business side, that failed.
That's the real aha moment here, I think. Humans get tired. Humans get political. Humans have egos and make bad financial decisions. The AI doesn't care about any of that.
It just looks at the equations.
He just looks at the data, at the equations, and says, this works. Why aren't you building this? It sees hope and opportunity where the humans only saw bankruptcy and failure.
Okay, now I have to play devil's advocate for a second.
Please do.
Because this all sounds incredible. Billion-dollar discoveries, super fast innovation, but you've got an autonomous AI system designing new chemicals. You have it piecing together new physics models.
It gets dangerous fast.
It gets incredibly dangerous, incredibly fast. We've all seen the movies, right? But more practically, we know for a fact that these big AI models are trained on the internet. And the internet is... Brian has a great term for it.
Internet sewage.
Internet sewage. It's a visceral term, but he's absolutely right.
He is. If you train a model on the open web, on Reddit, on 4chan, on the comment section of YouTube, you are feeding it an unfiltered diet of bias, anger, trolling, conspiracy theories, and violence.
So if you then turn around and ask that AI to design, say, a highly efficient chemical delivery system, how do you know it's going to design a vaccine and not a nerve gas?
You don't. You have no guarantee. Unless you build in a conscience. But code doesn't have a conscience.
So how did Brian solve for this? Because he seems like exactly the kind of guy who thinks about the worst-case scenario first.
He absolutely is. And this brings us to what might be the most important part of this whole system. The love equation.
The love equation. Okay, that sounds like a bad 80s pop song,
Yeah.
but it's actually an algorithm.
It is. It's a mathematical and algorithmic framework for ensuring benevolent AI. And here is the absolute kicker about it.
What's that?
Brian solved this in 1978.
Wait, what? 1978? He was thinking about AI safety during the disco era.
He was. But he wasn't thinking about ChatGPT. He was thinking about alien intelligence.
Okay, tell me more.
He was pondering the Fermi paradox. Where is everybody? He realized that any civilization advanced enough to travel between the stars would have also developed the power to easily destroy itself.
The great filter.
Right. Therefore, the only civilizations that survive long enough to make contact must, by definition, be benevolent. They must have solved the equation of cooperation over destruction.
So he took that core philosophy that for intelligence to sustain itself, it has to be benevolent, and he turned it into code.
Exactly. He built 3 separate local AI models that act as regulators.
Okay, how do they fit into the corporate hierarchy? We've got Grok, the CEO, Claude, the engineer. Where do the regulators sit?
They are the gatekeepers. They are the ethics board.
Yeah.
They sit between the big cloud AIs like Grok and Claude and the actual operating system. Their only job is to monitor all the output.
Every single command.
Every directive, every line of code Claude writes, every chemical formula it proposes is checked in real time against the love equation.
So if Grok gets a little too aggressive in its pursuit of profit and suggests something that could be harmful,
The regulator halts the system instantly. It kills the process and flags it for human review. And this isn't just a theoretical safeguard. Brian shared a stat about this that is, frankly, terrifying.
what was it?
In a single 24-hour period, the ethics protocols were triggered 83 times.
83 times.
In one day.
83 times. That means 83 times the AI system, in its pure logical drive for efficiency or for a novel solution, suggested something that drifted into unethical or potentially dangerous territory. And 83 times the love equation stepped in and said, no, you can't do that.
That's right.
That's chilling, but it's also incredibly reassuring.
It proves why this is so necessary. The Zero Human Company isn't just about speed. It has to be about safety first. Brian said he would trust his life to this equation. And in a way, he is. He's letting these machines design the future of his company based on its guidance.
So let's zoom out a bit. We've gone through the tech stack, the AI personalities, the big discovery, and the critical safety layer. But what does this all mean for the world? We are literally witnessing the birth of the Zero Human firm.
It's a fundamental redefinition of what a corporation even is. This is the proof of concept. Brian has shown that the entire stack, from high-level strategy down to tactical execution, marketing, and R&D, can all be handled by autonomous software.
So where does the human fit in? What is Brian's job now?
Brian's role is now the chairman of the board.
The chairman.
He steps back. He sets the initial conditions. In fact, he said he hasn't even fully audited everything the AI C-suite has schemed up yet. He trusts the regulators to keep it on track. His role is to provide the resources, the electricity, the API keys, the initial data, and then get out of the way.
It's a completely different economic model. And speaking of the economics, I love how he funded this whole experiment.
The circular economy of content, he calls it.
Right. Explain that. It's brilliant.
He creates content on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. He gets paid from their creator funds for the engagement that content gets. And he takes that money and puts it directly into paying the API fees for Grok and Claude.
So his thoughts are funding the machine that's having new thoughts.
The cost of innovation has crashed down to the cost of electricity and API tokens. It's almost zero.
And that, to me, leads to the biggest implication of all. If Brian Rommel can do this in his garage with a used MacBook, what happens when this scales?
Brian predicts that we are about to see a massive wave of AI firms birthing breakthroughs from the ashes of the past. Just think about it for a second.
Okay.
How many thousands of bankrupt tech and science companies are there? How many thousands of abandoned hard drives are sitting in storage units?
We've been so obsessed with innovation, with making the next new thing, that we completely forgot to look at what we already had.
Precisely. We are entering an era where we might stop inventing brand new things from scratch and start finishing the great works our predecessors were forced to abandon. We're always saying we stand on the shoulders of giants.
We forgot the giants left all their notebooks in the basement.
And the AI can read them all.
And Brian wants to give those notebooks, or at least the method to read them, back to the world, right? He's planning to open source this entire project.
That's the plan. He intends to open source the entire workflow, the orchestration scripts, the software that stitches it all together.
So the listener, you, right now, sitting in traffic or on the treadmill at the gym, you could theoretically build one of these.
His roadmap for people is start small with open data sets and then scale up. And he even mentioned the potential for listeners to become actual stakeholders in this.
What do you mean?
Since he's the chairman of the board and the company is just him and the AIs, he's looking into legal ways to make early supporters and community members actual legal partners in the company.
That is just wild. A company run by AI, owned by a community, built on research, resurrected from the trash. It's the ultimate democratization of high-tech R&D.
It really, really is.
So let's try to wrap this up. We have Brian Rommel, who I am officially right now calling a historic figure in this movement, working alone in his garage with a 12-year-old computer. He saves 6 terabytes of data that represents billions of dollars in lost value. He builds a Frankenstein menagerie, a team of AIs with a demanding CEO, a hardworking engineer, and a strict ethics board.
And they find market-changing, world-changing technology in a matter of hours.
And they do it for a few $100s in API fees. It is the first zero-person company. It's not a theory in a white paper. It is happening right now.
It is.
And it leaves us, and you, with a final, pretty provocative thought.
It raises a huge question for everyone listening. How much human knowledge is currently sitting in a landfill? How many cures for diseases, how many solutions to the energy crisis are just sitting on a forgotten hard drive in a dusty basement somewhere? Yeah.
That gives me chills just thinking about it.
If one person with a 12-year-old MacBook can resurrect a potential billion-dollar company from the trash heap of one failed firm, what happens when this scales? What happens when we apply this to the entire history of discarded science?
A whole new kind of industrial revolution.
Are we entering an era where we stop inventing and start remembering?
Stop inventing and start remembering. I think that is the perfect mind-bending place to leave it. Listeners, you absolutely need to follow this story. It is developing in real time. Go to readmultiplex.com. Seriously, go there now. And follow Brian on X. His handle is @BrianAram. He's posting live updates on the Frankenstein menagerie as it works.
And really, take a look around your own garage or your attic. Think about what data trash you or your family or your old company might be sitting on. You never, ever know what's hidden in there.
Absolutely. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today. This feels like the beginning of something truly huge. We'll see you on the next one.
Goodbye, everyone.